Shalom everyone, welcome to B.L.A.S.T ministry. The topic for today is You Have Not Passed This Way Before. Let's get into the word. A little overview of the story. The scripture is taken from Joshua 3:4. But I would like to start from chapter 1, where I will give you a little overview of what is it about. So it's here about Joshua, who is chosen by the Lord after the demise of Moses, the Lord's servant. So he was chosen by the Lord to lead the Israelites. There were about 2 million people. God chose Joshua to lead them into the river of Jordan. So apart from being just a new person, God chose him and gave him such a difficult task. And his new job consisted of leading more than 2 million, as I mentioned earlier, into a strange new land. And even though it's a strange new land, he was able to conquer it. That would have been a great challenge for Joshua, who felt he was incompetent. Because as you see in the scripture, before going to chapter 3, verse 4, if you see in the scripture, God was giving him assurance that no one will be able to stand against him as long as he lives. And that's when Joshua took on the position, he took on the duty of crossing the Jordan River together with the 2 million Israelites. And if the same like us, we wouldn't be leading a batch of people of 2 million people, but we be encountering circumstances where we are tied down with a difficult decision making, or maybe we are facing a tough situation concerning our business, or maybe our spiritual life. It could be anything that God has promised you and He has given you a word, yet to know where your leading would be. But God is faithful, because if He has given you that word, He will guide you through. It's just that a matter of having patience and aligning ourselves. Because as Joshua, he didn't feel that he is competent enough. But God was giving him this word: be strong and courageous, for you are the one who will lead these people to possess all the land I swore to their ancestors that I would give them. Be strong and very courageous. That is what God has been telling to Joshua. And that also is for all of us too. And also do not forget to meditate, because the main scriptures here is about you have not passed the way before. You have not passed this way. Currently, I don't know what you may be facing. It may be a new area that you are living in, or maybe a new scope of job that you have been entrusted with, or maybe you have been all of a sudden you have been given a door of opportunity into stepping into a ministry, and you have no idea where God is leading you through. But it all starts from somewhere where God is, the gift of man makes room. So when God has planted something inside of each one of us, wherever God is opening the doors, even though it may seem so new to us, so strange, but wherever God has opened the door, and you know that is God's open door for you, step in. And there are times when there's some delay. Don't think that God is not working for you. Because as you see in Joshua 3 verse 4, I'll read from verse 2. 3 days later, the Israelite officers went to the camp, giving this instruction to the people: when you see the Levitical priests carrying the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, move out from your positions and follow them. Reading verse 4. Since you have never traveled this way before, they will guide you. Stay about half mile behind them. Keep a clear distance between you and the ark. Make sure you don't come any closer. This is what God has told, using the Israelites, these officers, to instruct Joshua and the people regarding of following the ark of the Lord. So that is what God is saying. When God has given us a blueprint, or maybe not an entire thing, when God has given us a plan, an idea, He will take us to a time of testing of faith. And that is what many of us are in this process. We feel that God has told us to do something, but we have no idea how to do it. And the thing that He has called us is something very new. It could be a new job, it could be a new ministry, a new place where God has told you to operate in your gifting, and you don't see that you are ready for it. But God doesn't wait for us to be ready and so on. Though He prepares us, even though when we don't feel like we are ready, He will just catapult us to where we are supposed to be, because He is going to demonstrate His mighty power. And it may seem just like how these people have not traveled that place, they have not passed that way before. That new area you are living, you may not feel that you have known anyone there. That new job, you may feel that you are alone in that place. You don't have that skills, you don't have that background in that new place. Just like how God led Joshua and the Israelites, God has been always telling Joshua that God will lead them. God will wait, what verse was the verse? Let me read this. Okay, verse 7. See, here when you see chapter 3, verse 7, the Lord told Joshua, "Today I will begin to make you a great leader in the eyes of all the Israelites. They will know that I am with you, just as I was with Moses." So when we follow the Lord's leading, even it seems so, not as usual that how we have done. Maybe there are times we like to run and do a lot of things at one time, but suddenly God makes us to be slowed down, and it's not been our style of doing work. Many times we like to be so, we like to do many things in one time. We are very productive, but at times God silences and asks us to wait on His timing, which is so difficult. But when we choose to relax, I mean, we choose to rely on God, we release our control over circumstances. And God has been seeing that you are faithful. You will have the leading of the Lord. It may be any leading, it could be remain there in one place until God opens a new door. Or maybe God is asking us to work on our giftings. There are times God's ways are very different from us, and it tests our faith. But even in that point of testing our faith, God is seeing whether we are remain faithful with Him, with what He has given us at that point of time. So one thing when about following the Ark of the Covenant, as the Israelites and Joshua was leading these people out there, what happened was, when you see in verse 9, you see Joshua told the Israelites, "Come and listen to what the Lord your God says. Today you will know that the living God is among you. He will surely drive out the Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, and all the other lands ahead of you. Look, verse 11. Look, the ark of the covenant, which belongs to the Lord of the whole earth, will lead you across the Jordan River." The ark of the Lord's presence, as when we rely on His leading, as He go before us and set all things right. We may be bound by our own timing, but God is not bound by our own timing, our own timeline, our desires. Is always, He wants to give the best. Although He knows our desires, He has His own timing. And when we rely on Him, what happens here when you see in verse 12 onwards? Verse 13. As you're marching towards the Jordan River, the priest will carry the ark of the Lord, and the Lord of all of the earth. As soon as their feet touch the water, the flow of the water will be cut off stream. The water will just go up like a wall. It becomes like a wall. So when the presence of the Lord is upon your life, whatever things the enemy is trying to bring, it could be anything, any delay, any attacks, it all has to make way for you. When God steps in your situation, it may not be like what you imagine it to be, but you will know that when God steps in, things that seem impossible, circumstances that feel like you're unable to get over it. It could be financial crisis, it could be anything that you've been working on, and you seem to feel like God is saying to wait on His timing, to wait on certain things, and you feel so difficult to wait on Him. But God is empowering us. He's giving us the strength and the peace while in the waiting, while in waiting His next instruction, next step. God has made a way for us. He has moved away every distraction. He has moved away everything that came to put a stop to what He has been moving. Because when God's presence is upon our life, nothing can ever touch us. It may seem that the enemy was getting upper hand, but everything has to give way. Every doors that were shut on us will be open at the right time as we align with Him, as we follow the Lord's leading and not leaning on our own understanding. So when when the water was split into two and was formed like a wall, that's when these people were crossing over to Jordan, crossing until they didn't cross just normal ground. What is, as you see in verse 17, 3:17, Joshua 3:17. Meanwhile, the priests who were carrying the ark of the Lord's covenant stood on dry ground in the middle of the riverbed, in the middle of the river, dry ground they were passing through. As all the people, the 2 million people passed through the land, they waited there until the whole nation of Israel, crossed the Jordan on dry ground. Now we may be feeling like you're drowning in the water, but you have not drowned completely. You may feel like you're going through the fire trials, but you're not burned. But during this testing time, these trial times, on waiting on the promise of the Lord to manifest, clinging onto our faith, God will make us to walk on dry ground. God will never let us to be humiliated or ashamed of anything. Though circumstances may put you in a place where you're ashamed or you are trying to make yourself to rush God's process, but it will not happen in that way, because you will end up going back to where you started with the Lord. So whatever pressing situation in your life right now, could be finance, it could be waiting on God's timing, could be anything that you know that God is with you, God is guiding you. Maybe He has given you a project to work on and you feel the constant distraction to work on that project. It could be your business, new startup. But I believe when the presence of the Lord is upon you and your family, whatever distraction that comes, whatever hindrances that comes, that wants to enslave you back in the in this slave mentality, because just like this, Joshua was called to lead these people into their promised land. Same, just like you and me, God has chosen us to step out for our families, for our community, for our nation, to step out. It could be stepping out in anything, in our business, to re-establish, to rebuild certain things, to restructure those, to amend new strategies in terms of business, in terms of ministry, or anything. When God has called us, it seems difficult, it seems like it's impossible, it seems like it's a new path, because God has called each one of us to be a trailblazer, those who God have impressed upon your heart. I'm saying this. So people may not understand your pathway because you are starting right from the scratch. God is using you to start something new. You have not passed through this place. You have not worked on this kind of project before. You have not joined with this kind of group of people before. You have not been working in this kind of platform with new people, because everything that concerns God starts fresh. He connects people to us that He knows that will accomplish the destiny or the purpose that He has for our life. He knows what is good for us, even though we want to stay in sometimes in our comfort place. But God has His way of pushing us out into the unknown, because in the unknown where He will manifest His power. We may be sitting in the house, but God is moving us out from the comfort zone, getting connected, acquainted with people unknown to us, in working out our giftings. Because as we are operating our gifting, our gift will make room to great people, out there, because we may know our gifting, but God is allowing us to work in our gifting in that secret place, so that great people will take notice and your gifting will be used in that area. So do not give up on the Lord. He is faithful to use anyone. Work in your gifting. God bless you.